All right. Hey, Terry. How are you?
Hi there. I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Doing good. I love the background. That's so perfect for an author. Just books,
Right.
books everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
My living room slash study slash library.
Now, I'm going to assume you've read all those books?
At some point, some of them go all the way back to graduate school.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Yeah, that's a
mhm.
lot of books. Well, it looks very cool. So, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Um, your book is called Cinematic Prism. Is that correct?
Josephine Baker's Cinematic Prism.
Okay. Josephine Baker is an amazing character in history. And why don't you just tell us a little about her for people who don't know who she was and her significance? And
Oh, my pleasure. It's my favorite topic. Josephine Baker was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906. Her birthday is coming up in June. And she was a performer. She performed on the vaudeville circuit and in New York City. And in 1925, she accepted an opportunity to travel to Paris and continue to perform. And there she became the Josephine Baker. Her significance for my work, or the significance that I'm asserting, is that Baker is our first true global film star, a Black woman who's a global film star. She performed in four feature films, and the earliest of these films was in 1927.
1927, was that a silent film or a sound film?
Oh, it was a silent film.
Okay, I have not seen that film. What did she do in the film?
She plays the part of Papitu, who is just a regular girl in a way, and she falls in love with an engineer who I think she saves his life and he saves her life. Whatever. She falls in love with him and ends up following him to Paris and tries to find him there. So it's sort of a comedy film, but also we can see Baker sort of going in between the two personas that she would become known for. On the one hand, she's alluring and glamorous, and on the other, she's playing this like comedic kind of almost foolish, naive uh, girl.
Okay, was she primarily a singer?
She eventually was primarily a singer, but she started out as a dancer. And it's actually during this period where she starts performing in films in the late 1920s that she learns to sing. And the 30s have her recording her first records. She sings in a nice, light operatic voice. But over her career, which lasted 50 years, her voice deepened and enriched, and she really becomes what I would think of as a French chanteuse. You know, that tradition of singing the melancholy songs like an Edith Piaf. But she also sings these comedic songs that come out of the colonial fantasy work that she did at the Parisian Music Hall.
Okay, how many films did she make in her lifetime?
There are four feature films, and then there are a number of short performance films, newsreel footage type of appearances.
Okay, and when did she die?
1975.
Oh, she lived a long time then. She was fairly old, yeah? So, aside from all of the work that she did, she was also very significant, I think, in breaking that stereotype that was unfortunately very prevalent in the 1920s through probably the 1960s of African Americans portrayed as domestic servants, for lack of a better word. That seems to be that they weren't treated on the same level as white performers. But she really broke that. She was treated, or at least portrayed, as equal. Would you agree?
I would agree in part. She was very concerned about playing the types of roles that you're describing, and what I've noticed is that although Baker starred in her film, she receives top billing, and she's the reason that the films are being made, right? They're based on her persona and her fame. But there are subtle ways, and sometimes not very subtle ways, in which I think the films do undermine her stardom.
I'll give me an example.
Oh, so for example, each of the films has sort of a love story, but I call them a no love story because Baker is the star of the film. She has her heart set on her male co-star, and he is always looking past her, beyond her. She's kind of talking and entertaining him, but his eyes are kind of a spotlight, a spotlight of desire. And that spotlight needs to shine on Baker in order for her to truly be this romantic lead and the star. But in fact, his gaze is always looking elsewhere to another of their co-stars. And this leaves Baker as a character and as an actor, I think, not fully benefiting from the genre that she's being placed in. It would be one thing if the film was, in a way, critiquing those kind of romantic narratives and providing another kind of stage for Baker. And in a sense, they do, because these characters get to perform on stage, and they receive the glory from being artists. They get to be Josephine Baker. So I love that for her. But she has said that she was disappointed that in her films she was kind of doing what she already did on stage, and she was really looking for something different. And I would also emphasize just her achievement in learning French, and learning French well enough to carry her lines throughout the sound films that she performed in.
What was the name of the first film, the silent one?
Oh, Siren of the Tropics.
Siren of the Tropics. Okay. I want to watch that. I think that sounds really interesting.
Oh yeah, it's a good one, and it's Louis Buñuel, who's a well-known surrealist filmmaker, was the assistant director for part of the time in that production. And there are a number of like hand-tinted scenes that are very beautiful, and like I said, you see Baker in a number of different guises, and it's worth a watch. I hope you like it.
So, how did you get interested in writing this book? What was it about Josephine that attracted you to write the book? I'm assuming the book is a life story, her life story.
It's a book of her screen story. It's
Okay.
really focused on her movies, and it's a book of film criticism.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Hmm.
So, what
Yeah.
brought you to that? Where did you? How
Her
did you discover that?
paradoxes. I was in Paris as a graduate student to study the phenomenon of African Americans in Paris. And I was struck by the number of times her name came up in conversation. And so I checked out her films at the library and watched them, and then just continued to sort of pursue information about her, reading the existing biographies. And I just became enamored with her complexity, her paradoxes, and the range in her career. And that's what I explore in the book. That's what I call the cinematic prism.
Was she a bigger star in Paris than in the United States at that time?
You could say that. I think that's definitely true. The career that she was able to have in Paris was bigger in that Paris was such a huge stage, and she hit at the right time when there was this fascination for Black popular culture, Black art, dance. There was curiosity about African cultures, and although she's not African, she is an American. But she is a dancer, and she becomes a kind of portal or a kind of gateway for folks excited about the types of fantasies that she made possible.
Well, one of the other African Americans that I'm a big fan of music is Miles Davis. And he had a similar situation with going to Paris and living in Paris. And I remember reading something about when he got to Paris, his music was exploding on the jazz
Oh
scene.
yeah, no, I think Paris was an amazing place of growth for many artists. I think partly because Paris is more artistic. It's friendly to creativity, the pace of life, the kinds of institutional structures that are there. I mean, one of the reasons I got involved in film study was just the ease with which I could see a huge variety of films. It was part of the everyday life. Films were literally projected on the street as I was going home. With a cellist, a silent film projected on the side of a building. So it's like you're kind of, I mean, this is many decades after Josephine Baker and Miles Davis, but there's something about the cultivation of creativity and popular culture there that is welcoming. And I think the fascination with like a Black culture overall feels really sweet to people who are coming out of Jim Crow, who are coming out of racial segregation.
Right.
It allows a space where you can enjoy yourself. It has its costs, certainly. It's a conundrum that folks enter into, but also that's part of, I think, the tensions that give rise to creative growth.
Uh, yes, yes. Although I hate that idea that artists have to suffer and struggle in the
Oh,
name of their art. You know, wouldn't it be nice if artists could just have a comfortable, normal life that they could work and create rather than
no, that's right.
having to go
Yeah.
through so much misery?
Well, I think a lot of these folks would say that they were having a comfortable life in Paris relative to their lives in the US.
Yeah, oh, I agree. I mean, compared to
Mhm.
what was going on here at that
Yeah.
time, certainly. But it's just that sort of overall picture of the starving, struggling artist.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never agreed about that because there are those people who think that you have to go through that in order to create great art. And I think I think it's bull. I really don't think that that's true. It doesn't enrich you necessarily because if you're worried about having enough money to eat, it's going to affect your ability to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
we are just about out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Well, I think I would just point people to the Indiana University Press site for the book, if they're interested in purchasing a copy of Josephine Baker's Cinematic Prism.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. And I'm going to check out that film. That sounds really
Oh
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I think you're gonna like it. It's pretty good. It's
great.
good.
Well, thanks